Welcome, Andre.
Thank you.
What an amazing story it is, though, for your wine company, or your online wine company. Tell us, where did it actually start for you? Was it when you were in a call centre at Cellar Masters?
Yeah, that was my first wine job. I tried a lot of things. I was an out-of-work actor and singer, and Cellar Masters used to hire out-of-work actors and singers in their call centre. And I always drank wine, but that was plenty of wine, but I liked it. So that was sort of the beginning of, this is a cool space, an industry to be in. But that was only ever, just to pay the bills. And when I left that to start I wanted to make movies, so I started a video production company that was just going to do corporate videos while I developed my feature film, which is, of course, all we ever did. I say we, it was just me. Actually, that started, it's a funny story. So this is probably this is a good startup story. My wife was an actor and she'd landed a great job in an ongoing series and really well paid. We're living in Sydney, bought a house, we just got married, and I was like, this is great. I quit Cellar Masters. I thought we'll live off your salary, sweetheart, and I'll just spend a year or two learning how to film and produce and just work myself up, and then I'll launch this video production company. And Sydney Mortgages being what they are, 3 days after we settled, she got a call saying the show was axed and we were both unemployed. So she's freaking out. So I'm like, don't worry, I'll sort it out. And so I had a DVD from actually the SA Film Corp had done this beautiful thing on locations around South Australia to film. And I grabbed it, a mate of mine had done the sound on it, and I drove up to the Hunter Valley, which was the nearest wine region, and I went into the tourism office. I said, this is the kind of thing that we can do for you, and walked out of there with a gig and drove back to Sydney and bought a camera on my second hand and went online and learned how to edit. And that was the start of my video production company, and that's not the right way to earn money and pay off a Sydney mortgage. I was just like to add, it wasn't, but that was the start. It was like really, I didn't have my 2 years of luxurious get into it. That was probably the first lesson in,
just do it.
Yeah, need is a powerful motivator.
You just had to do it. Let's fast forward then to Vinomofo.
Yeah.
We're going to get this story out of the way first. The name, Vinomofo.
Yeah, look, yes, we know. It does mean wine, motherfucker. And it's important to just get that out there, I think. And I'm not proud. Like, I'm 41. I've got like 2 golden retrievers and a 4-wheel drive. I'm just like middle-aged, like wasp.
But is that the name that you really wanted?
No. I'd come up with this cool name, Vino Mojo. It was going to be a deal site, and it was, in the beginning, it had like a group buying thing. So, you had a tipping point on the deal, and we were like, we'll call that get your mojo on. And we had this whole thing going. I was really proud of it as a name. I thought it was cool. And then 3 days out from launch, we got a cease and desist letter from a trademark attorney representing a public company who have a wine brand called Mojo, who were convinced that it would provide confusion in the marketplace. And I thought, I'll just ring him, that's fine. I spoke to the CEO, and he pretty bluntly assured me that he didn't give a fuck whether we were right or he was wrong. Their checkbook was going to be much bigger than ours, and in 2 years, good luck with where you're at if you haven't launched yet. So we thought, best change the name. So we're just drinking one night, 3 days from launch. So then going, we better change the name, we better do something similar, because we'd launched Facebook pages and our Twitter page and the site, like a sort of a pre-subscribed campaign. And so we had some audience, we had some brand presence, and we're going, Vino Moto or Vino Go, so we just, and Justin, my business partner, just was like, let's just call it Vinomofo for the motherfuckers who try and stop us from launching. And they went, yeah, that's good, what should we call it? And then it was one of those, maybe we just do it for like a month, and we'll get some PR out of it. Then we'll change back when we got the trademark, and of course we never did, so that's what it is. And I'm not proud. Yeah. My kids have asked me what it means.
Yeah, and?
Well, they're young, so I just say that it's like a wine guy. I keep it broad.
All right.
But it's a ticking bomb.
We'll talk more about how you actually started. First of all, though, let's just rewind also. You were involved in the community wine online site of Quaff.
Yeah, so look, I was doing this video production company, and the wine industry became my my clients and my specialty, my niche, I guess. And I sort of was just a tradesman, effectively, and I was aware that between I'd do the job, then I'd have to sell to get another client, then I'd do the job, and it was either scale and hire lots of people to do the jobs for me and just concentrate on, or do something else. And I became interested in the voice of the people, like customer reviews was that's about 2005, 2006 I started planning this. And so I had this idea to start a wine site that was, about, you could go on it and you could see what 1,000 people thought of a wine, and it was sort of before I really understood or had experienced social media. My brother-in-law had come back from a 6-month trip in South America where he discovered himself, and and he'd discovered Facebook with American and Canadian and UK backpackers, keeping in touch with their friends at home and sending photos back. And he came back going, I want to start like Facebook for wine. He was into wine as well. We're brothers-in-law, so I might add Justin, my business partner. And so it was Christmas again, fueled by alcohol. A lot of my decisions, I don't recommend this, just do it. It does give you confidence, obviously, to just do it, but it's not without its dangers. We just thought, yeah, cool, these two ideas go together, customer reviews and social networks. So we came up with this idea, and we thought, it's the time, it'll be awesome. And that's what we started, and it never, it's very hard to make money from a business that doesn't sell something. Very hard to make money we didn't really we weren't concerned about business models. We should have been. I'm not saying because we were above it, we were just too stupid. So we never found a way to make money. We just thought people would give us money just because we were there and we were doing something cool. When we got into video content and we got into location-based services, and I guess we were always at that sort of bleeding edge of technology, consumer technology and consumer behaviour, which we loved, but never had solid revenue streams, or we just didn't have a business model. And it was trying to turn that into a business that could sustain us, and failing and getting broke and putting the family under pressure and all those sorts of things that I think finally led us to Justin one day coming back from 4 years and really on the edge, really close to bankruptcy, really close to having to give it up, and having promised my wife that, just give me 3 months, I'll get a job if it's still the same in 3 months. It was really that sort of stage. Him come back going, got to start a wine deal site. Again, we'd seen in the space, we'd seen the emergence of Groupon and in online retail take that sort of focused approach, and we sort of went, I was like, no, dude, that's dirty. We can't sell stuff. That's like selling out. Because we had a good audience. The one thing we did right is we built an audience based on relationships and based on, communicating with them via social media and via our site, and we had trust. It's just a small audience, like a few thousand, but it was there. So I was like, no, we can't sell them anything. We'll lose that trust. He was like, yeah, but we need to make money. I was like, yeah, that's a good point. So we asked them, and we said, look, how would you feel if we sold you some wine? And they were like, yeah, it's about time. You've been crapping on about wine for 4 years, telling us what, advising us on what we should buy. So we'd established this trust, and we'd established relationships with an audience of people that loved wine. And they said, yeah, go for it. And we went, okay, we'll try it. And so we did it, and it was the thing that worked. All
right, so you created you found a niche, didn't you, to start with?
Yeah, we did. Yeah. I mean, look, it's a niche. Wine is a niche. Online was
a crowded market, subset of that. Online wine is a crowded market.
It wasn't then.
Okay.
It's become, but then it was weird. Look, wine is about Woolworths and Coles and a few little guys. You know what I mean? And so it was one of those, we didn't come up with this. It was a good business model. We didn't come up with it because it was so awesome. We came up with it because we had no capital, and we thought, well, we need something that we can pay for the stock after we've sold it. So we can't afford a warehouse, and we can't afford to buy stock and hold stock, and we can't afford, we need to be able to. So the model was constructed on the constraints that we had, and as it turns out, it was a good model because it was cash flow positive and allowed us to bootstrap our own growth and all those sorts of things. But I'd like to say we were so astute, but we fucking knew nothing about business and nothing about retail when we started.
But I think everybody in the room is going to want to know, how did you start a business without capital? Because probably everybody in this room is thinking that is where they are now.
Yeah, I'll probably put some. Look, we had prior to that received. Like we had an angel investor who gave us 200 grand to lose, which we were burning through at a rapid rate, and we pretty much just about burnt through that with our awesome wine community that had no revenue stream. So we were on the edge there. When we started Vinomofo, we went, all right, we'll bring in a partner, Lee Morgan. He came in with 50 grand. And that was sort of to go, all right, pay yourself until we get profitable. So we sort of thought, this is a test. We didn't know it would work. We went, this is what we've got to burn through with this. If it doesn't work, it's his money, and we've tried it, and we'll keep going with what we're doing. And if it does work, then okay. And really within 3 months, which is about all we had with that capital, within 3 months, we'd seen it worked. We chucked everything into it. So how do we start it? You just do everything yourself. You don't pay yourself for 4 years. Again, not recommended, but I've got a few, probably 3 key points when I was thinking about just doing it, I think are really important. And stuff that we've learnt along the way. One of them is when you're conceiving a business and you know, number one is product, is coming up with a product. With that, it's important to conceive a minimum viable product. It's a buzzword that everyone talks about, you probably heard about. But what's the most focused, fastest to market, cool thing that people might need you can launch with without having to be all the things that you can imagine that will be part of your billion-dollar empire? What's the one thing that you can be of use with? And that's speed to market and minimises your capital, particularly if you're a tech company. And the other thing is just modelling out the fastest, leanest route to profitability. And a lot of people come to us now with business ideas, and whether it's for advice or because they want us to invest in them. And there's all about, oh, look, all we need is 1.2 million capital. Here's our business plan. We'll get 4 BDMs, sales guys. We'll get, we need 3 developers. And it's this sort of, this minimum that we need to do this is like a team of 12, and we'll need to, a 300 grand advertising budget. And I'm always like, no, what are you, there's you and one other guy now. Ideally, I think every startup should have a partner. It should be a hacker and a hustler. There's you and this other guy. What do you need to pay yourself? Look, if you've got kids and a family and that's 100 grand each, so it is. Better than that, you're 23 and you can live off 30, 40 grand. What's your business model to get to break even, to be able to pay the minimum operating expenses that you need to really leanly operate? That's a model I think everyone needs to identify, because quite often it's like 50 grand or 20 grand, or maybe it's that time to transition from your job or your part-time job to that, and it's a salary sacrifice or a time sacrifice, and maybe it is for a while you're working 80, 90 hours a week, but I think it's really important to have that. And then the third thing, so there's the minimum viable shippable product, and then there's the more niche you go, the more, everyone's like, how do we get to market? The more niche you go, and that comes down to product and also its appeal, the more chance you have of reaching an audience without a budget, and the more engaged that audience is going to be by virtue of the fact that you're focused on honing and you're only appealing to these passionate few. And it's not every business model, but I really advise any startup to go, is there a model in that with a lean focused part of a product to a very, very niche audience? Because you can reach them either through social media or just through whatever that community is. And chances are, if it's really niche, it's got a community and they're open to something new, and you can probably make an impression. You can probably be the most interesting or the best or the cheapest, whatever it takes to make an impact product to that niche with your focused product. That's your start. And then you can grow from there.
I think you've used the word ambassadors at the other end for those people that take up your product. How important are these ambassadors, that they become the raving fans and then create more business for you?
Look, we're believers in sustainable growth, and in online, there's 2 ways you do it. You either measure and you invest your money in your product, in the customers you do have, which are your ambassadors, and you encourage and empower them to talk about you and talk about what you stand for, and that's a sustainable growth model. And if you are spending marketing budgets, you're measuring and you're making sure that that first transaction or a very short customer life cycle is paying your marketing budget back. That's the model that we learned through necessity and through the partners. And I'll go to sort of the stages we've had. We've had some sort of interesting growth leaps as a business. That's the model that we learned. The other thing is you go and you get $40 million and you pump it into and you buy a market share in the hope that, and you ramp up in the hope that then you'll be able to turn that model slowly profitable. And then, there are success stories on both. I mean, Amazon spent about $6.5 billion before they were profitable or something like that, which is astonishing and ballsy and quite mad, but here they are, and I'm sure they're not sorry. So they're not, it's not, there are two approaches. But this idea, if you want to start and invest in your product and your customers to grow, you get ambassadors. And you're talking about giving people such a good experience and connecting with them. The smaller your niche, the more you can build relationships with them, and people will believe in you. This is what we found. The business story, it was we've had a really great year and won a lot of sort of growth awards and had a lot of media. We hired a PR agency, so we're sort of, media whores. And it's worked. It's been a good strategy. But what we found is that people, because we were, I guess, open and inclusive about our story, and we were always sort of like, this is what goes on behind the company and this is who we are, we had customers that really believed in us and I think felt like they'd contributed, and quite rightly felt that they contributed to our growth as a business because they knew us when we were very beginning and know us now, and they're the true ambassadors.
Okay. Part of your growth also is that you've had a pretty close look at the supply chain as well and seen where you can improve on that and make a better product. Yeah. Have you achieved that? I know you've looked at it.
No, we haven't.
Achieved it?
No, we've achieved the beginning of the supply chain. Interesting for us, coming from social media and coming from being communicators, and feeling like we're really good at engaging. And indeed, we were sort of, we led the wine industry, into social media and into building relationships with their customers directly. So prided ourselves on that, but probably overstated the importance of that when we created a business that was about product. And, we created a good brand, an authentic brand, and we were good at message and we were good at communication and it was sort of a cool thing, and we had a really good environment, a really good culture, and we translated that. But it took us a while to realise that was all really good if it's a layer on top of good product. And that product starts with the stuff we were selling at the price we were selling it at, and then moves on to the platform or the channels through which we're selling them. And they are all about our product. And the brand is part of that product, but really it took us a while to realise that, and look, luckily we got this right without knowing it, but I don't take pride in that, I think, thank goodness. In the end, if we hadn't had the best wine at the best price, or in the best total proposition, which in wine's a commodity, it needed to be sharp priced to sort of make an impact. If we hadn't had that, people would have gone, oh, these guys are really cool. What do you think I should buy? Thanks, I'll go to Dan Murphy's and buy it. Yeah. And we wouldn't have had a business. So that side of the relationship with suppliers and getting good product, we got that right. What we have undervalued for too long is the role in delivering this thing to someone's door and giving them that good experience. And we've done that badly because we've relied on partners, and it's generally been with us, and I think with most startups. You've got to become good at everything that you do, and you've got to own the engagement or the transaction. And if you don't or you can't and you need a partner, you have to choose that so well. And there has to be such a synergy in what you stand for and in your culture and in the customer experience you want to deliver. And that's what we haven't done well. And we see it, we suffer from it. So I'm in the middle of fixing that. It's big, it's not hard, it's not easy. There's, delivering wine across the country is like a nightmare.
One of the things you've also said, a great expression that you've said is failing forward. Just explain that. Yeah,
look, it's a real startup buzzword and people talk about it. But so I was at a supply chain conference, which is a really boring title. And indeed, it was a really boring conference, but it was really interesting. last week, and I was speaking, and there was a few online retailers, startups who built good. Like there was Booktopia, there was myself, and there was the guys that started appliances online. Like $300 million companies that had done well, and all of us in a pretty short space of time. But we're in this room full of logistics managers and supply chain managers and people from big retailers, from Woolworths to Super Retail Group, and that either were online or weren't yet. And it really was about it was focused on online. And by day 2, I sat back and I was thinking, I've got to give a talk to these people, and I suck at supply chain management, so I don't know what I've got to offer. But I sit there and go, wow, I've just noticed what's interesting here is that the people sitting where you guys are sitting, generally from large corporations, generally there to go, what do we need to do to get online? And the first thing I said is, look, what's been interesting is we are who you're competing with, and we're the annoying little fuckers who've gone there first and are doing it super fast and are setting the expectations for your customers, which is why you're having to drag your butts into online when you'd rather it all just went away. You know what I mean? You're very good at what you do, you own your space, but this is the annoying, disruptive element of your business. And it was interesting. It was a lesson in, wow, what can you do as a startup better? And I think there's lots that you can't do better. We're in business against Woolworths, really. Like, they're great. Not only are they enormous with lots of money, with lots of customer points, with lots of customers, Jesus. They're very good at digital now. They're about the best there is at digital, at online retail. They're very good at supply chain. They're very good at product. They're very, for all their things. And so we're like, wow, you've got to be better at them at something. Otherwise, what's the point of you being there? But you can be more personal. Your brand can engage more, because no matter who stands up and goes, I am the voice of Woolworths. They're always going to be Woolworths. They're always going to be a public company in everybody's eyes. So you can be more engaging. You can build stronger relationships with your niche. You can't reach as many people, but that's not important to you. You can be faster, and you can act now on things, and you can execute them if they don't require enormous capital. And all those things, we sort of realised they were the things that we'd done well. And looking across at this conference, they were the things that all these startups had done well. And, got some market share in a space that you would otherwise think, like Booktopia. Yeah, I'm going to go in a space that Amazon is in. But it achieved it. And how? Because he was faster than Amazon here. And because he did it. And because he offered, and there you go. I've got a $70 million business. And maybe even when Amazon come, I've got a chance because I'm here.
So you spoke of social media, non-traditional media, as being fairly important to you. How can anybody in the room use social media to build their brand like you have?
Oh, look, it's just that, isn't it? It's a terrific tool. I like to if you think about where we're at, for a long time, and a guy, one of my I don't know him personally very well, but I really admire what he's done. His name's Gary Vaynerchuk. And he's a wine guy that's become a social media guy, that's become a technology and engagement sort of guy, and a consumerism sort of guru. He talks about this concept where for a long, long time when production and distribution and communication was village-based, nothing left the village, and the village was self-sustaining. And say you've got 2 bakers in the village, and, Rupert the baker, he has to look after Aunt Martha, one of his customers, and he has to maybe listen to what she wants stocked, because otherwise, if he's rude to her or he doesn't stock her lamingtons, then Aunt Martha's going to tell all the friends that Rupert the baker's a very rude man, and that will spread, and there's only so many customers that he can have, and pretty soon they'll all take their business to, Reggie the baker, and Rupert will be out of business. And that's the way it was, for hundreds, if not thousands of years, if you go back to the beginning of trade, until the Industrial Revolution came along. Production scaled up beyond the village. Rupert the baker, he's got an enterprise, he's shipping to 5 villages and pretty soon across the country. And distribution opens up nationally and then globally. But communication's still limited to, the village and people talking to their friends and occasionally a letter to the editor, since the Gutenberg press. And that was the death of customer service and the death of the voice of the people and the death of marketing in the true sense of the word, to be honest. And that was the way it is for a long time until social media and until communication and its reach caught up with production and distribution, as in became international, became global, or became equivalent to production and distribution of a company. Suddenly, if Aunt Martha's got, 2,000 Facebook friends and her friends are, and she complains about Rupert the baker, word can spread to a level where it can impact Rupert's business. And if Rupert's not listening to his customers and he's rude to people and not offering customer service or not interested in listening or communicating with customers, Rupert's mighty international bakery empire can go out of business. And you're seeing it with Vodafone, and you're seeing it with lots of big. And this is the power of the people. And it's only very recent this has been. So we're back in this era of the customer and of true marketing. And when companies are forced to, or hopefully choosing to be customer focused, and social media platforms are wonderful tools to do this, and necessary tools to do this. You need to have relationships with your customers because they want it. And that's why social media is important, and particularly as a startup, you've got an audience. We started our business by who's talking about wine. Let's go and join the conversations, and then this is, by the way, this is what we do. You don't have to hide that you're there to offer something, but hopefully you offer something first, and then people might pay attention to you. And we built that, and people talk about we're in an era of startup buzz because the barriers to entry are lower than ever before. You've got cloud-based technology, so there are no massive investments that are needed. In that side of things. You've got platforms where you can reach enough of an audience to begin your business. It's a cool time, and that's what they provide. So that's really just getting there and joining the conversations, I think, is the beginning of building an audience on social media.
We'll open it up and just take one last question, though. If you were to explain your business to a 5-year-old, what would you say?
We would say a 5-year-old would be a challenge. I'd say come back and talk to me in 13 years, or maybe 16, maybe 11 years if you get a hold of your mum and dad's credit card. No. Look, to describe it simply, we sort of say we're the best wine site on the planet. We're about good wine, real people, and epic deals without all the bow ties and bullshit. And that's sort of the reason we say best on the planet is because it's a little bit whimsical, but it offers a promise that we'll check this out. We'll see if we can live up to that. And wine was traditionally a conservative, elitist, non-inclusive product and community. And we were part of this wave of people and built a platform on cutting through that and going, look, don't be afraid. You don't have to know what you like. We'll help you discover that, but don't be embarrassed. Jesus. We're talking plain English. We won't use jargon. We won't. So that became what we stood for. So that's how I would describe it. To a 5-year-old, I'd say we're wine dudes who are...
And we're here for you in 16 years, yeah.
Just quickly, so I didn't answer your failing forward. I went to describe the reason it comes about in the agility of startups, and so I got sidetracked. But the point is that's what we've got going for us, is the ability to not everything comes undone with a failure. We've got the agility to go. The idea of failing forward is a physicalisation of, you launch fast and you learn you get out to your customers and you learn as much from your customers as from your experiences. It's not to say no planning. It's just to say don't let fear and meticulous, you don't need 100% full. There is no 100% foolproof. If you do a business plan for a startup, you're never going to be profitable, and no one's going to go, yeah, that looks like a cracking model. You should go for it because you don't have the capital, and it requires a leap of faith. So failing forwards is about, be smart about what you need to figure out, but then go fast, make it happen, get to market, get feedback from your customers, do things. If it's not working, change, pivot, and you sort of tumble here and there, and that's failing forwards. And not being afraid of that. And a good startup community, which I have real high hopes that Adelaide is becoming. And I see the beginnings of it, and like to do whatever we can and people I know to help that. And this is cool that this is happening for that. But the idea is it's a safe environment. People respect having a go more, and people don't. You're not judged from failures. Ask Jesus. I personally have failed, for 18 years of being an entrepreneur. It's nice to be invited here to talk, but really, what have I got? 3 years of, one business out of about 5, and I certainly wouldn't have been invited had I not failed forward to Vinomofo. So it's about that. It's inclusive, and it's about good on you had a crack, because we're trying to do new disruptive things mostly. You know what I mean? We're not trying to just launch a store like everybody else has got or something. We're trying to find a space that's got room or is going to be useful to someone or change the world in some way. And so everybody's welcoming of that. The startup community is welcoming of that. So you're not ostracised for failures. You're encouraged in a good community. And that's why it's the ideal space to do that. And that's why that's a positive approach to take.
Your energy and passion in startup and going for it and doing it, and taking on the view that, technology, and you're there at the forefront and going for it, often you find that the bureaucracy hasn't quite caught up. I'm interested to hear what happened when you applied for a liquor licence to sell online, because, there's a variety of liquor licences, but I wonder if direct sales, online sales had even been invented at that stage.
Look, it had, but it was bullshit, because there was a restriction on that said you can't leave a box of wine at someone's place. But every other licence, which Woolworths operates under and Coles operates under and all our predecessors operate under, says you can leave a box of wine at someone's house. Everybody wants their wine left at their doorstep because no one's at home when delivery guy's there. Massive competitive disadvantage. Appealed to have it removed. Understood that we don't want 12-year-olds getting the wine, but, let's do wholesale. Let's go across the board, no one can drop wine. So getting the licence wasn't such a problem, but the restrictions around the licence made it a bit harder. I think an important thing about bureaucracies, and that includes funding, that includes organisations like this. Startups can't wait for anybody, because what we've got is we're faster. And if you wait for a grant, or you wait for a policy, or you wait for anything like that, you miss the boat. And I think it's been the undoing of entrepreneurs. It's been the undoing of startup communities to rely on that. Especially, I think the cool thing about this is it's here to go. We'll offer to get everyone together and seek to bring mentors and people. That's the right approach, but you can't wait for bureaucracy. Bureaucracy doesn't need to stand in the way. You adapt your model and your business to work within the guidelines. I, for a long time, didn't give two shits who was in power. Honestly, I was like, that's fine. If we're taxed a bit more or we're not, whatever, I'm busy with my own shit and I'm going to get on with it. And when it's only now that we're of a scale, and I want to reward my employees with shares, for instance. That's where I'm going, oh, come on, can we change this policy? But that's only new. Had I waited for those things, you don't need to wait for bureaucracy. I think it's a mistake too. You cut through it, and cutting through is, I think, it's part of what you can do as a startup.
Just interested regarding the wineries that you deal with and the wine suppliers. I would imagine they'd get a bit pissed off when you're undercutting Dan Murphy's or Woolies and Coles and those sort of suppliers. Do you find that they, every now and again, just look at you and go, I might, maybe not?
No, because we're really transparent with them. What they are is, once we've bought the wine from them, everyone knows what's going on. It's before that, they're terrified. Terrified of Woolworths and Coles, they're terrified of their distributors, the traditional supply chain structure. So our biggest challenge is getting them across the line. It's convincing them that this is not going to hurt their brand, and they're the exact challenge. But it's fear, and we realised quickly that we couldn't get the wine and then screw them, because we'd never get them again, and there's a finite number of producers and a finite amount of product. So our whole approach with producers is about relationships. And sometimes it takes us a year to get someone on board, or they'll try with the last of a vintage or something, and we'll go, all right, we'll look after you with that, and we've got to make sure that everything's above. And look, yeah, they get phone calls and emails they get invoices from Woolworths charging them back for the fact that they had to price drop to match it. Like it's an ACCC haven, and in fact, that's going on. But yeah, it's it's exactly what the environment was that we entered into. And we were shocked. We're like, this is not fair. But it's, I think they realised that it's a growing space, and we placed ourselves at the forefront of that. And that was the hard bit, though. And this is why a part of our story, just quickly, we sold a large portion of the business to Catch the Day in 2012, which is Australia's biggest online e-commerce retailer. And we did that because exactly this. We needed to get from when we came on the radar, suddenly Woolworths are going, no, don't deal with them, and distributors saying that. We suddenly found ourselves, well, we're not going to have any wine to sell until we get to here, when we can go, yeah, but we'll give you $500,000 and we'll buy 2,000 cases, which gives them the courage to go, yeah, actually, distributors, when's the last time you bought 2,000? We had to get to that place of importance as a channel, and we had to do it in a month or two, not in 3 years. Otherwise, we're going to be dead, and that's why we found a partner to scale, and we achieved that. We bought the company back 9 months ago, which is really cool, and it's been an amazing period since then. That's another story, but your question is right to the heart of our biggest challenge. And our need, all we've got better than Woolworths and Coles and distributors is the relationship and the promise that we will work together with you on your brand, and a good audience. We've got 250,000, the sort of the most engaged wine consumers. And that's a value. That's what we bring to the table. That's why we can say we warrant our place in a chunk. Otherwise, they should just sell the wines directly to their customers themselves.
You mentioned in regards to business partners that one needs to be a hacker and the other needs to be a hustler. Do you mind explaining that a bit further?
Yeah, my personal belief. So I think there's no offline anymore. So most businesses, and particularly in any sort of startup space, are online in some way, whether you're not directly a software application or whatever. But certainly, let's say that that's an important part. For us, one of the things that made it very difficult was because we didn't early enough acknowledge that we were an internet company, every bit as much as we were a wine company. So we should have got a developer as a partner. Founding partner early on would have solved a lot of our headaches. And indeed, you can't afford to, developers are expensive. You're a startup, it's pretty hard to offer someone $120,000 salary, which is what you need to pay a good developer, and you need a good developer. So I think the idea of, and indeed I think in the States, in the startup movement, there's a lot of people's answer to that is no, you need a hacker and a hacker. People are like, just make the product right and the rest will sort itself out. I think in this market, and I think you need a hustler. You need someone that can sell what you've got and can get out there and talk about the business and sell the business and create opportunities. So I think you need someone to build and someone to bring it to market. And I think that's the right partnership. Whether that's 3 or 4 people or whether but I think they're the elements that cover the broadest skill set in 2 people.
It's also a great story, and Andre, thank you very much for joining us. Ladies
Thank
and
you,
gentlemen, Andre Ekman.
Thanks for listening.